Imagine two cousins, same city, same year, same amount of money saved up, and exactly $80,000. The first cousin does what everyone told him to do. He buys a house, puts down that $80,000 as a down payment, gets a mortgage, and feels proud. He tells his parents. His parents tell their friends. Everyone claps. The second cousin does something weird, something that makes her family nervous. She doesn't buy a house. She invests that $80,000 into a simple index fund and keeps renting an apartment. Fast forward 20 years. The first cousin owns his home outright. He talks about it at every family dinner. He says things like, "Real estate never goes down," and "I built equity." He feels like he won. But here's the part nobody talks about. The second cousin. She's worth 3 times more than him. She didn't own a single piece of property, and yet, financially, she destroyed him. How is that possible? Because somewhere along the way, we all got sold a story so deeply embedded in our culture that questioning it feels almost un-American, almost irresponsible, almost crazy. The story that buying a home is the smartest financial move you can make, that it's the foundation of wealth, that it's what responsible adults do. But what if that story was built for a world that no longer exists? In this video, you're going to discover why the single biggest financial decision most people make in their lives might actually be holding them back from real wealth. You'll find out what the numbers actually say when you strip away the emotion and the cultural pressure. You'll understand why the people quietly building serious wealth are doing something most homeowners would never consider. And you'll learn exactly what's changed in the last 2 decades that made the old rules dangerously outdated. But that's not even the most surprising part. The most surprising part is where the myth actually came from. Who built it? Who benefits from it? And why almost nobody is telling you the truth about it. Let's go back to 1950s America. World War II just ended. Millions of soldiers came home. The government wanted to reward them, stabilize the economy, and create a new kind of middle class. So they did something remarkable. They made it incredibly easy and affordable to buy a home. Mortgages became widely available. Interest rates were low. New suburbs were being built everywhere, and a simple cultural message spread like wildfire. Owning a home means you've made it. It's the American dream. And for that generation, it actually worked. They bought homes for $15,000. Those homes became worth $300,000. Some of them became worth $1 million. Real, life-changing wealth built on a house. So the lesson got passed down. Parents told children. Children told grandchildren. Buy a house. It always goes up. It's the best investment you'll ever make. But here's where it gets interesting. That world, the one where a teacher and a factory worker could buy a home in a great neighborhood on a single income, that world is gone. The math that made homeownership a wealth strategy in 1955 doesn't apply in 2025, and the people still following that old advice are paying for it without even knowing. You've heard the phrase 100 times. When you rent, you're throwing money away. When you buy, you're building equity. It sounds so logical, so obvious, so responsible. But let's slow down and actually look at what's happening when you buy a home. Say you buy a house for $400,000. You put down $80,000, that's 20%. You finance the remaining $320,000 with a 30-year mortgage at a 7% interest rate, which as of the mid-2020s is completely realistic. Now here's what most people never calculate. Over 30 years, you will pay approximately $450,000 in interest alone, not principal. Interest, money that disappears forever, money that goes straight to the bank. So that $400,000 home, you're actually paying closer to $750,000 for it by the time it's done. And that's before you add property taxes, which in most American cities will cost you $4,000 to $10,000 every single year. Before you add homeowners insurance, before you add maintenance, and financial experts generally estimate that 1% to 2% of a home's value disappears into repairs and maintenance every year. New roof, HVAC system, plumbing, foundation cracks, things that just happen and that you are now entirely responsible for. But that's not the real reason this math gets dangerous. The real reason is something called opportunity cost, and most people never think about it at all. Here's something almost no one does. Almost no one sits down and totals the true cost of homeownership. They know the mortgage payment, but they don't add everything up. Let's do it together. You buy that $400,000 home. Your monthly mortgage payment on a 30-year loan at 7% is about $2,100 per month. Fine, you can afford that. But now add property taxes. Let's say $500 per month. That's $6,000 a year, which is actually below average in many major cities. Add homeowners insurance, another $150 per month. Add maintenance and repairs. On a $400,000 home, you should be setting aside at least $4,000 a year, so about $333 per month. Add HOA fees if applicable. In many neighborhoods and condos, that's another $200 to $500 per month. All in, you're not paying $2,100 per month. You're paying closer to $3,300 per month, maybe more. And here's the strange part. Most people renting a comparable property in the same area are paying less than that, sometimes significantly less. And everything they save, they can invest. Now here's where it gets really interesting. If a renter invests the difference, even just $500 per month at a 10% annual return for 30 years, that adds up to over $1 million. Just from the money they didn't spend on the extra costs of ownership. The homeowner, at the end of 30 years, has a house, maybe worth $900,000 if the market was kind, but they spent $750,000 buying it, plus hundreds of thousands more in taxes, insurance, and repairs over 3 decades. The renter who invested has a portfolio worth potentially $2 million or more, and 0 maintenance headaches. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but my parents bought their home and it worked for them. They made money, so what changed? This is the most important part of the entire conversation. What changed is the ratio, the relationship between home prices and incomes. In 1970, the median American home cost about 3 times the median annual income. If you made $10,000 a year, the average house was around $30,000. That relationship made sense. You could buy a home, pay it off reasonably, and still have money left over to save and invest. Today, the median home price in America is over $400,000. The median household income is around $75,000. That's more than 5 times income. And in cities like San Francisco, New York, or Miami, we're talking 10 to 15 times income. The math fundamentally broke. When a home costs 3 times your income, it's manageable. When it costs 5, 10, or 15 times your income, it consumes everything. Every dollar you earn goes toward the mortgage, the taxes, the repairs. There's nothing left to invest, nothing left to build actual financial freedom. And that's not all that changed. Interest rates changed. After decades of historically low rates on where people were getting 2.5% and 3% mortgages, rates jumped to 7% and above. That doubles the total cost of borrowing. A $300,000 loan at 3% costs you about $155,000 in interest over 30 years. The same loan at 7% costs you $418,000. Same house, same neighborhood, nearly 3 times the interest cost. But the story doesn't end there. Here's what most people miss. The reason homeownership stays so popular isn't just culture. It isn't just parents pushing advice. There's something deeper happening in our brains. Psychologists call it loss aversion. We feel losses twice as strongly as we feel equivalent gains. And renting, to most people, feels like a loss every single month. You pay $2,000 in rent, and at the end of the month, you have nothing to show for it. It feels like burning money, but paying $2,000 in mortgage interest every month, that feels different, even though it's functionally identical. Money gone, never to return. The difference is just the story you tell yourself about it. On top of that, there's something called the endowment effect. We value things we own more than their objective worth. When you own a home, you emotionally overestimate its value. You see it as more than an asset. It's your home. You painted those walls. You planted that garden. You raised your kids there. That emotional attachment makes it incredibly hard to think clearly about whether it was actually a good financial move. And the real estate industry knows this. They're not selling you an investment. They're selling you an identity. They're selling you belonging, safety, status. And as long as they can keep doing that, they can charge whatever price they want. Here's something almost nobody says out loud. Every time someone buys a house, an enormous number of people make money. The realtor takes 5% to 6% commission. On a $400,000 home, that's $20,000 to $24,000 gone on the day of purchase. The mortgage lender makes hundreds of thousands in interest over the life of the loan. The title company takes a cut. The inspector, the lawyer, the insurance company, the local government collects property taxes for the next 30 years. The entire system, realtors, banks, insurance companies, governments, home builders, every one of them profits massively from you buying a home every year, forever. And who pays for all of that? You do. So when every financial pundit, every television show, every well-meaning relative tells you that buying a home is the smartest financial decision you can make, it's worth asking, smart for whom? Because none of those people are collecting 5% when you buy an index fund. None of them are making money off your S&P 500 contributions every month. The system was built to benefit the system, and the best way it keeps working is to convince you that there's no other way. Now, here's what this is not. This is not an argument that nobody should ever buy a home. That would be just as wrong as saying everybody should. There are situations where buying a home makes complete sense, and ignoring them would be dishonest. If you plan to stay in one place for at least 7 to 10 years, the math starts to shift. The transaction costs, the commissions, the closing costs, the fees take years to recover. But if you're not moving, you do eventually recover them. And beyond that point, ownership can start to win. If you live in a rent-controlled market where rents might spike unpredictably, owning gives you cost stability that's genuinely valuable. Your mortgage payment doesn't change. Your rent can. If you have a large family and owning gives you space, stability, and roots that renting can't, and that matters to you deeply, that's a real value too. Money isn't everything. Stability is worth something. And if you buy at the right time, in the right market, at a price that makes sense relative to local rents, a home can still provide decent returns. The point isn't that homes are bad. The point is that homes are not automatically good. They're not automatically wealth building. And the lazy cultural assumption that buying is always smarter than renting has quietly cost millions of people a fortune. So what does the person actually building wealth in this environment look like? They're doing something most people think is irresponsible. They're renting, but they're renting intentionally. They're paying less per month than they would on a mortgage, and they're investing the difference aggressively. They're mobile. If a job opportunity comes up in a different city, they take it. They're not anchored to a property they'd have to sell at exactly the wrong time. They're liquid. They don't have $200,000 locked in the walls of a house that they can't access without selling or taking out a loan. They have real, accessible money that can work for them, be deployed in opportunities, and be grown. They understand that wealth isn't about what you own. It's about your net worth, and net worth is built by letting your money compound, not by locking it inside a depreciating asset with massive ongoing costs. And here's the thing, they don't look wealthy. They're not posting pictures of their new kitchen. They don't have a ring light story about their home renovation. But in 20 years, they will have quietly, invisibly built more wealth than almost every homeowner on their street. The world changed. The rules changed. The people winning are the ones who updated their playbook. Here's the biggest insight to take from all of this. Your parents weren't wrong. For the world they lived in, buying a home was a great strategy. It rewarded them because prices were low, incomes were proportional, interest rates were reasonable, and the stock market was less accessible to ordinary people. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world where home prices have outrun incomes, where interest rates have doubled the cost of borrowing, where index funds are available to anyone with a phone and $1, where careers are global and mobile, where the old old certainties have dissolved and the people clinging to the old strategies are quietly losing ground. The American dream was never really about the house. It was about freedom, security, building something for your future, a life where you didn't have to worry about money. The house was just the vehicle that worked at a specific moment in history. That moment has passed. The question is no longer, should I buy or should I rent? The real question is, what is the actual best path to financial freedom for me in the world as it exists today, not the world as it existed in 1975? Because here's the truth nobody tells you at the closing table. The most expensive house you will ever buy is the one you purchased without ever questioning whether you should.